Hello everyone and welcome to this, my summarised thoughts of Rainbow Six Siege multiplayer. Now, my only prior experience of this game, up to this point, was messing around and failing repeatedly in Terrorist Hunt, the mode which throws you into a randomly selected challenge against the AI, footage of which you'll be able to see in my previous video, where in co-op, me and a mate realised just how much this game demands from you. Strange wording you might think, but I do believe that this is a game that is just hardcore enough to warrant that word's usage. Now, we're not talking military simulator level of hardcore, but this is certainly a step up from your typical run-of-the-mill modern military shooter. What do I mean by this? Well, essentially, there are a number of features and mechanics that when combined make the direction of this game very unique and, in my opinion, straight up superior to a number of its competitors. Who is it competing with exactly? This being a AAA FPS, it naturally has to stand up and hold its own against the big boys of the field. This including Call of Duty and Battlefield, both the current competing kings of the casual FPS genre, and both with some amount of a competitive scene. And then there's Counter-Strike Global Offensive, the undisputed current emperor of competitive FPS, with an absolute powerhouse of an esports scene, which sees more than enough views to power a booming item trading and betting system by the side. For many, the watching of the esports and betting on the results is the entirety of their interest in the game, which is not so surprising when you consider the ever-continuing growth of the video game streaming platform Twitch and the booming item economy. Against these giants of both the casual and competitive FPS scenes, Rainbow Six Siege is the challenger, and for the most part, it's actually emerged victorious. In this day and age of flopped releases, deceitful developers and publishers, and more competition being released with every year, Ubisoft Montreal gave birth, late 2015, to a kicker. To gauge the game's current success, you need only look at the number of people still playing on Steam. More than 2 years after release, the number of people playing with Steam average, for the last few months, around 17,000. Now, my terrible maths aside, if we consider that this is merely one of its 3 platform player bases, the PC crowd, and only part of it at that as can also play through Ubisoft's very own PC platform Uplay, this is really quite impressive. This relatively old game in terms of AAA yearly releases is, at least on PC, actually growing in its player base. What I can only assume has been encouraged by multiple free weekends, strong and consistent post-launch developer support, as well as a newly minted esports scene. Speaking of this game's growth and expansion, this video is released soon after the developers announced their plans for Season 2. Operators will continue to be added to the game, to a total of 8, with the first 2 being spoiled already, and them being Jackal and Mira. Jackal being an attacking operative with the ability to scan enemy footprints in order to get a bead on their potential position, and Mira being firmly on the defensive with her installable wall-mounted 2-way mirrors, giving secure locations and their defendants the ability to check outside corridors for incoming threats, and then maybe shoot them. This 2-way mirror system can also be turned into a kill hole if you smash the handy canister located at the bottom of the mirror, which then blows the whole thing out. So, not only will Season 2 bring Jackal, Mira, and, as yet, 6 more unspoiled operators, it will also see some major matchmaking reworks and an item reward system. The item system will be very similar from the sounds of it to the CSGO system, where either randomly or periodically based on leveling up, you will receive at the end of a match an item box. In the developer's own words, you play, and we give you some loot packs that you can then open for free. From this wording, it actually sounds like they want to give away loot packs that don't require a purchasable key to open. Is this being extremely optimistic? I don't know. Maybe it's more important to the developers to hook people in with free in-game loot than to charge them for the privilege of opening it. And I guess, unlike CSGO, Siege does have alternative revenue methods, with the many operators planning to be released in the future. So, free loot for everyone? Maybe. Probably more importantly though, Season 2 will also see some major reworks of matchmaking, with dedicated servers being implemented over peer-to-peer connections for secondary systems such as in-game communications. TLDR, this will improve overall match connection stability, which is no bad thing. Thumbs up. However you look at it, this strong post-game support, among other factors, really strengthens the community and game as a whole, for which I am extremely glad. Too often nowadays we see titles with interesting ideas and fresh approaches get ground into dust on launch by a disinterested market. On that topic, what has made this game so interesting to people? Well, a wild mix of mechanics, features and technology that together push the game's pseudo-hardcore focus. First, I simply must highlight the mechanics that Siege utilizes to set it apart from the competition. In other FPSs, to enter a room, you might have the option of a doorway, maybe an open window, and if you're really lucky, a purposely placed ceiling or floor hole or vent. In Siege, the theme being modern counter-terrorists versus terrorists, you're given a whole suite of fun toys to play with. You can rappel up to a window and then break it partially open to check the room for threats, and if it's clear, with a few more swings of your gun butt, smash it all the way open for you to then swing in like a badass. Alternatively, you have breach charges, which, after being placed on a breakable surface, of which the map is largely made up of, can be blown at a later date to facilitate an explosive and damn cool entry. This is not to mention the wide suite of other fancy and not so fancy tools that the operators have at their disposal. One guy has a sledgehammer. In a world of smashable surfaces, guess how much fun he is to play. This wide array of ways to get close to a target bomb or opponent really feed the game's feel that it's one giant and customizable puzzle that has been created to allow you to find your own solution to the terrorist threat. To make a better analogy perhaps, think of a game like Call of Duty. In such a title, the maps are essentially inflexible, indestructible constructs, where the only flexibility to be found in a match is in the player's own actions and movements. In Siege, the map is almost as flexible as the player, and can be deformed to a large, and more importantly, practical degree. This brings us onto another aspect that makes the game so darn fresh: the actual technology behind it. The fact that the engine actually supports the destruction of the environment to this degree is just slightly incredible. What's even more incredible though is that so few titles actually experiment with this destruction mechanic. The only series that do this that quickly come to mind are Battlefield and Red Faction. In-game, it is often a good idea to remind yourself that you are vulnerable even if you have your back to a wall, and that shooting a hole in a wall in order to spy and shoot out of is a very viable and maybe even necessary tactic. Likewise, if you're halfway sure that you can hear someone walking on the other side of a wall, above you, or even below you, chances are you should start shooting. This will maybe earn you the element of surprise, and a chance at a free and easy kill is no bad thing. The technology is definitely there, and when playing you really do get the feel that in order to win, you'd better be using it. The realistic focus also probably deserves a shout out for this game's great feel, as this focus also allows you to do things that just make sense. So take an operative called Doc, for example, who, as you might expect, has a healing gun. You have the options to shoot an ally to heal them, shoot an ally to get them immediately out of a down state, or shoot a healthy dude to temporarily buff their health pool. But a simple thing that he can do is shoot himself with any of these abilities, giving you many options as to how you continue the fight. A really simple inclusion that just, when you think about it, makes sense. The realistic focus also means that you only have one life per round, which, if you've played classic Counter-Strike or something similar, you will know how this increases the tension of every second that you're alive. You can't afford to run around aimlessly. Instead, be patient, listen to your surroundings, and make smart plays. This is really cool because the high value in staying alive and not taking risks results in the game becoming a much more cognitive experience. Long words aside, this is a thinking man's game as much as it is for seasoned FPS players, processing what you hear and see and extracting from that information some sort of understanding as to what the other team might be doing or the direction they might breach from is of high importance. These slow sections, coupled with the short time to kill, make for extremely high tension matches. Whilst you might spend more time not shooting than shooting, the fact that combat is so fast and brutal makes staying on edge and being alert as to what's happening and what might happen a really big deal. In summary then, this is a game that creates massive amounts of tension for the players, ensuring that each match is a bit of a thrill. For this, I do kind of adore it, as it does feel a bit like a clean tonic after the many greasy meals that the FPS genre has been offering us for the past few years. Not only does it provide a cleaner, more streamlined experience than its AAA counterparts, but it also utilizes current technology to directly improve gameplay, and this makes it a very modern shooter, something that Counter-Strike, it being firmly rooted in its past traditions and mechanics, really can't lay claim to. All in all, this has been so far a fantastic multiplayer experience, and one that I intend to experience for some time to come. So, here's to Rainbow Six Siege and Ubisoft Montreal for daring to take on a very crowded FPS market and daring to introduce something very much unique and very much its own game. Do expect some more Siege in future. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Oh god!
Oh, oh my god.